This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And welcome everyone to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Pauline, and today first of all, welcome to Vegas to the Raiders, and I'm going to give you guys an update on just how easy, or I'm going to give you guys an update on what the voting was to bring in the Raiders to Las Vegas. So first off with that, and then we also have some basketball to get into. We have some women's college basketball to recap. They have finally set after last night their Final Four, as well as some NBA basketball to get into. So we have a lot of things to discuss today as we have our podcast, our show. So there's a lot to get into first that we really need to catch up on. So starting off with women's side of the NCAA, we have the Final Four set, and they're going to be playing on Friday. And so I'm going to give you guys a recap, kind of starting with the weekend, because the women's basketball side of things, the women's bracket has been playing all weekend. So a lot of things to just kind of catch you guys up on. So on Thursday, the 23rd, no, excuse me, not Thursday the 23rd, I apologize. Friday, the 24th, we had number 5, Ohio State, fall to number 1, Notre Dame in the semifinals, 76-99. Number 4, Louisville, fell to Baylor. Number 1, Baylor, 63-97. Nina Davis of Baylor, she had 21.7 rebounds and 2 steals in that game against Louisville. And then we had number 3, Texas, take on number 2, Stanford. They lost 66-77. And then that evening, we had number 3, the Huskies, the Washington Huskies, lose to number 2, Mississippi State, 64-75. Kelsey Plum of Washington, she had 29 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. And then Tiara McCowan of the Mississippi State, she had 26 points, 12 rebounds, and 2 assists. So that was Friday. And now jumping on into Saturday, we had number 4, UCLA, take on number 1, UConn. And not surprising, UConn, who defeated UCLA 71-86. And then we had number 12, Winnipeg, take on number 1, South Carolina. South Carolina fans, you guys are Party City right now. You guys cannot be happier than happy. I'm sure I can just imagine what it's looking like in their student center, or, wherever it is that you guys buy your gear. Back in my college, we had it at the student center. I know some people have whatever. I don't know what you guys call it, but the student store. Basically, I'm sure you guys have just stuff flying off the shelves out there in South Carolina, because, both our teams are still in it to win it. How exciting. So then we have number 10, Oregon, who took on number 3, Maryland, and upset number 3, Maryland, 77-63. And then number 3, Florida State, took on number 2, Oregon State, defeated them 66-53. So that was the excitement that took place on Saturday. And then we had some games on Sunday leading. So now these were the finals. And we had number 2, Stanford, taking on number 1 Notre Dame. Stanford took it right from underneath Notre Dame, 76-75. Stanford's Brittany McPhee, she was a top performer in that game on Sunday, 27 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. And then we had number 2, Mississippi State, take on number 1, Baylor, and take it away from Baylor. Mississippi State secured their first Final Four ever. So Morgan Williams of Mississippi State, she had 41 points, 3 rebounds, and 7 assists. And then to wrap up the lead-ins to secure spots in the Final Four on the women's side, we had number 10, Oregon, take on number 1, Connecticut. They lost 52-90. And then number 3, Florida State, fell to number 1, South Carolina, 64-71. Therefore, setting up the Final Four being number 2, Stanford, facing off against number 1, South Carolina, in Dallas, Texas, as well as Mississippi State taking on number 1, UConn. Now, I was talking to a gentleman the other day last night actually, who told me that this is the year that UConn is going to lose. And when I asked why he felt that way, or, just wondering what his reasoning was behind that, he didn't know. He didn't really have a specific, because of this, or, Mississippi State can do this, where UConn doesn't have an answer type thing. It was kind of just mostly he was saying because UConn has won enough is basically his reasoning. And sometimes you got to lose. And so, I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to wait till Friday to see those matchups, those Final Four matchups. But the way that it's been looking these last few years, it's UConn. They are set to, they are in the running to secure their 5th consecutive national title. So we will see. It'll be definitely, honestly, if I'm Mississippi State and I defeat UConn going into, in the Final Four to launch me into the championship. Now, winning the championship, yes, of course, is the ultimate goal and the exciting thing, but if they were to defeat UConn, Mississippi State were to defeat UConn and then lose to either Stanford or South Carolina in the championship game, if I was on the team, I don't think it would sting as bad losing that championship game. Yeah, it's going to hurt. It's definitely going to hurt. But is it really going to sting that bad when you literally knocked off the number 1 all-time winningest team ever? I don't know. I guess if they knock off UConn and win the championship game, that will definitely be one for the storybook. So, like I said, we'll have to see as we lead on into the Final Four for the women's side on Friday. So there's going to be a lot of exciting games in college basketball starting this weekend. The Final Four, we have Phoenix as well this weekend with the men's side of things. So nothing to look forward. We have this break now until Friday for college basketball, but never fear, the NBA has our back, and there's quite a few games these next few days in the NBA. So when I come back from this quick break, I'm going to give you guys a recap of what was happening in the NBA last night and what to look forward to today as we take this little mini break, this rest break for March Madness. Now is the time to get all your gear. Now is the time to find out and coordinate where you're going to watch the games at, to invite your friends over, figure it out, get some time off from work if you have to, and things like that. So keep it locked here. You're listening to the Golden State Media Concept Sports Podcast. When I come back, I got to talk to you guys about some NBA basketball as well as some football news. So keep it locked here. You are listening to the Golden State Media Concept Sports Podcast. I'll be right back.
Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
welcome back, everyone, to the Golden State Media Concept Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Pauline, and so I'm going to give you guys a quick recap of the games from last night in the NBA, as well as some updates around the basketball court, and then we're going to jump into some other sports. The NFL, especially with the Raiders. Raiders fans may be very excited, may not be excited. We'll take a look and see what the voting process was like for the Vegas location, well, the Vegas move and everything. So anyway, so with the NBA side of things, last night we had the Orlando Magic take on the Toronto Raptors. They lost in Toronto 112 to 131. DeMar DeRozan, not a surprise here. He was the top performer for his Raptors. He had 36 points, 2 rebounds, and 3 assists. And then we had the Pistons take on the New York Knicks. The Pistons lost to the Knicks 95 to 109. Kristaps Porzingis, he had 25 points, 25, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists. So a big game for the young guy in there for the New York Knicks. Then the Cavaliers, which I said it yesterday, lost to the Spurs last night, 74 to 103. Now, the reason why I thought that the Spurs were going to top the Cavaliers was that the Spurs are a team, they're no frills, no antics, no extra distractions team. Very rarely will you ever hear about, I don't think I've ever really heard about much drama surrounding the Spurs, and I think that does play into it. I think that keeping a professional state of mind when it comes to the game of basketball, as far as looking at it as your job, I think the Spurs are a perfect example of that. Not saying that the Cavaliers are all about antics, but, very rarely do we not hear about the Cavaliers. Something that one of the players has done, said, tried, tweeted, videoed, whatever. So, like I said, the Cavaliers fell to the Spurs. LeBron James, he had 17 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists. Kawhi Leonard of the Spurs, he had 25 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists in that win over the Cavaliers. And then moving on to the Oklahoma City Thunder and Russell Westbrook, another triple-double for that guy in their 1-point win over the Dallas Mavericks. Russell Westbrook, he had 37 points, 13 rebounds, and 10 assists. I'm telling you guys, he's not slowing down anytime soon. He has a goal in mind, and I know that he is going to average that triple-double on the season. So Russell, like I said, 37 points, 13 rebounds, 10 assists. Noel of the Dallas Mavericks, he had a good game, though, too, in that loss against the Thunder. I mean, they only lost by 1. He had 15 points, 8 rebounds, and 1 assist. The Thunder are now 42 and 31 overall. The Mavericks are basically exactly opposite. They are 31 and 42 for the season as of late. Then my Sacramento Kings went on to get the job done again. They defeated the Memphis Grizzlies last night, 90 to 91. Mike Conley of the Grizzlies, he had 22 points, 3 rebounds, and 9 assists, whereas Darren Collison for the Kings, 23 points, 4 rebounds, and 7 assists in that win last night here in Sacramento. So a great night for us Kings fans. And also to add to our joyous night, the Pelicans fell to the Utah Jazz, 100 to 108. Now, no shade, because you guys know that I love Anthony Davis. He is my guy. He had 36 points, 17 rebounds, and 3 assists in that loss to the Utah Jazz. Rudy just was, him and his squad just able to get it done just a little bit better on their end at home with that home court advantage. Rudy, he had 20 points, 19 rebounds, and 1 assist. So really just as many rebounds, basically 19 rebounds, as he did points. So what a performance there. That must have been a lot of fun to watch. I think it's a lot of fun when the big guys in the middle are the top performers and showing out. I don't know. I prefer a nasty dunk or a really aggressive rebound over a three-pointer. I don't know. That's just me. That's kind of just my thing. I love the physical aspect of the players in the paint. So that's kind of just more my flow. You know, having a three-point shootout, though, is a lot of fun. It is. It is a lot of fun. But I don't know. I just like the big guys inside battling out. That's more of my flow. But anyways, so now we have to get into what the NBA commissioner has said, Adam Silver, in regards to a female head coach in the NBA. Now, for some people, and of course, at one point in time, this would just be completely unheard of, you know, or not even something to be considered. But as you know, the Kings, we have Nancy Lieberman, who is an assistant coach for us, as well as the Spurs, Becky Hammon, who actually just turned down a top coaching position job, the head coach position job over in Florida. Just yesterday, it was announced he turned that down to stay with the Spurs as an assistant coach with the Spurs. She was the first one to do it. But now the commissioner is saying, so, you know, this talk and this discussion, and Becky Hammon is the head coach for the Spurs during the Summer League. So, you know, it's not something that is uncommon right now. It's actually something that's still really cool because, like I said, there's only a few women doing it at this time. But, you know, it's just the next step to consider having a female head coach. Now, I know some people are probably no. Some people are probably, who knows? Maybe we'll see how it goes. And I'm sure there's a lot of talk as to how that would work out, where that would work out, and things like that. But the commissioner, he is one of, you know, Adam Silver is a pretty cool guy. I feel like he's pretty cool and very forward in his thinking. And he said, I quote, there definitely will. And I think it is on me to sort of ensure that it happens sooner rather than later. And so we'll see. So this was kind of what he said when being interviewed to promote the NBA and their leanin.org's launch of gender equality and public awareness campaign. And so he was saying that there are also going to be more women officiating in the NBA as early as this next season coming up. And so it's going to be very interesting to see. There is currently one woman officiating in the NBA, Lauren Holtkamp, who is behind Violet Palmer, and Dee Kantner, so who were previous and former female NBA officials. So I'm interested to see who's going to be the first female NBA basketball coach, NBA head coach, and who it's going to be. Is it going to be Becky? I wouldn't be surprised if it's Becky Hammon, just because I know she was the first and she gained and earned that respect right away. And I feel like really opened the door because of her success as the assistant coach over with the Spurs. So I would not be surprised if it's Becky. Is it going to be just someone completely else who's not an assistant coach? So not her or Nancy Lieberman. I'm really interested to see, and I'm interested to see when, and what does he mean when sooner rather than later? Is that something that's already in the talks? Is it something that they're just talking about? I don't know. So we'll see how that goes. So that's going to do it for this portion of the episode. I'm going to take it to my last break, and when we come back, we have to discuss some football. So keep it locked here. You are listening to the Golden State Media Concept Sports Podcast. I will be right back.
Do you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
And welcome everyone to the Golden State Media Concept Sports Podcast. So we are getting ready to wrap up this episode of the podcast, but it has been long anticipated, long awaited, and we have been kind of discussing it for quite some time, especially here on the sports podcast, as well as I'm sure on the football side of things. I don't do the football show. That's Jeremiah, and I think Ben and Anthony do that. So if you guys are interested in hearing that, there is an entire football podcast as well. So definitely check that out. But it is official that the Oakland Raiders will indeed be moving to Las Vegas. And so the owners, like we said, we talked about this, we touched on it a little bit in the show with Ben last night, that there was going to be a vote, and it did take place after the show. We recorded the show, so we weren't able to give you an update then. So this is your update now, but it was voted in. Now, it was a vote. So the owners had to take a vote, and they had to get a certain number of votes, remember, to okay it. So they only needed at least 24 votes. And Ben did say that he did feel that he would not be surprised if it he knew it was going to be at least 27, 28. I kind of had a feeling that it might possibly be all the coaches in favor, because I didn't really see a reason as to why some other coaches would not be, because it's been talked about for quite some time. It would be a pretty fun location to play at, even if you're on the visiting side of things. But I just thought it would be a lot of fun. And so last night, the owners had their vote in the afternoon, and the vote was 31-1 to move the Raiders to Vegas. Now, of course, this is not going to be right away. It's not happening tomorrow. But they had 31 of the 32 votes that they needed, and the only people that were against it were the Miami Dolphins. So, not bad. Not bad. They were the only ones against it. And so the owner of the Raiders, he said, Mark Davis told ESPN.com that, and I quote, "I have mixed feelings. It's very bittersweet. I understand Oakland fans will be angry and disappointed. I want them to know that I do understand that it's emotional. Raider Nation is the greatest fan base in the world, and we're going to build something to make them proud." And then he did say, "But I also want them to give as much support to the team as possible as we attempt to bring a championship to the Bay Area." So again, this is because they're not going to move right away. And so I'm sure, and that's kind of like the weird part about it. So they have approved the move, but it's going to take about 2 years or so before they actually relocate the team and move the team to Las Vegas. They don't even have a stadium. Like, we still have to deal with that portion of things. So they're going to be here in Oakland, in the Bay Area, until then. And so, you've kind of severed those ties with the city, but you want them to still support. You don't want to play for an empty stadium these final seasons in Oakland. So, but then there are a lot of people that are very excited for the move. There's lots of people excited, lots of fans. I know that I feel like the Raiders have fans literally everywhere. So it's just going to be an interesting transition, and interesting to see how the fans react once season does start up again. But anyway, so like I said, the Dolphins were the only team against it. And the Dolphins owner is Stephen Ross, and he said, "My position today was that we as owners and as a league owe it to the fans to do everything we can to stay in the communities that have supported us until all options have been exhausted. I want to wish Mark Davis and the Raiders organization the best in Las Vegas. So I kind of get where he's coming from and that makes sense as to why he voted the way he did. He was just looking at it from a fans and community support perspective, that he kind of was against, ditching a location based upon anything else rather than trying to do your best to stay in the community that supports them. So that's kind of cool. So that's pretty good news if you're a Dolphins fan. As long as you guys are under Ross, you guys probably don't have to worry about moving or any major changes to the Miami Dolphins as long as he has a say in it. So pretty, good news if you're, pretty good news if you are a Dolphins fan. But, it's going to be interesting to see, Derek Carr, he tweeted that he was mixed. He's a Raiders quarterback, and he said that he, quote, "I am overwhelmed with emotion. I don't know how we should feel. I feel the pain of our fans in Oakland. I also see the joy on the faces of our new fans in Las Vegas." And so, again, that's very interesting. It is mixed because, like I said, the Raiders have fans, I feel like, everywhere. He said also, he continued on to say, "As players, we will show up and give everything we have. We will compete, and we will do our best to bring a championship to the entire Raider Nation. While I am from California and would have loved playing in Oakland my whole career, I understand the business side of the NFL. It affects us all. Oakland, our team loves you, and my family and I love you. We will be resilient, and we will stay together because that's what true Raiders do. We are loyal even when it's hard. We stick together, especially when it's tough. So Las Vegas, you can count on us bringing a piece of Oakland with us, and you are getting a tough, loyal, and competitive fan base and team." So, nice. I think that was well said by Derek Carr. Nice thing to say. I don't, as a player, you don't really have much of a say-so on where and when and how you go, and especially when it comes to the whole team picking up and moving. So it's going to be quite an interesting transition, like I said, because I don't know how I would feel if, I just remember when the Kings were in Sacramento, was in the talks of perhaps moving the Sacramento Kings out of Sacramento, and how devastated our fans are, our community was, and literally everyone in the Sacramento area who even if you didn't like basketball and you just like the Kings because that was what made us Sacramento and that was our beloved team, we were really stressed about it. And, we wanted to keep the Kings in Sacramento. So, it's kind of revamped our pride in Sacramento and in the Sacramento Kings when, it was decided that they were going to stay here. So I can only imagine how Oakland Raider fans feel and how sad they are because, it's tough. It's a tough loss when you lose your team, especially when you grow up loving the team and grow up having those players as a part of the community as well. So anyways, that's going to do it for this episode of the podcast. Thanks for listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Pauline, and I will talk to you guys next time. We have Ben coming in tomorrow morning, and then Anthony and I will give you guys a recap of all things sports on Thursday, and then the guys will round off the week to give you guys a preview as we go into March Madness. I know I keep coming back to March Madness because it's my favorite time of the year. It's my favorite time, so I'm excited for it. But anyways, I will talk to you guys on the sports podcast on Thursday.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.